Welcome to Synergy Bonus. It's been a while. Lots been going on, with the thing going on in the world here. I've run into some technical issues. For one, my computer crapped out on me, so I had to get a brand new one. So I apologize if there's a day glow here, but yeah, it's been a trial and, patience. But we're going to get into that here. Anyways, I've had a chance to play the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and going forward, there will be spoilers. And how can you spoil a game that's a remake? Believe me, you can. So, I sat on this for a little bit. I've had some thoughts, I've had time to digest it, and I'm just going to kind of tell you what I think about it. If it's a good game, bad game, just all the little pillars that we're going to talk about here. So, the remake of Final Fantasy VII came out on April 10th, 2020. I didn't get to play it till a week later because of shipping issues and GameStop and, all that wonderful, wonderful jazz there. But I did get to play it, and yeah. So, I played it, and I did enjoy it. I'm going to come right off the bat and say I did enjoy it. But there are some things that I did not like about it. So, before we get into what I didn't like about it, let's talk about what I did like about it. So the gameplay did change. It went from your turn-based RPG to a action RPG, and I wasn't too keen on that when it first was announced that they were doing that. But when I got to actually play it and get used to the system, it worked well. It did work well. I do miss my turn-based, options, but it's still there somewhat. You control one character, you control Cloud, and then you got your other party members, and you can press a button to switch between them, or pause the action, select a command with them, and do it. It works. Is it a little clunky at times? Yes, but I got it to the point where it flowed very, very smoothly. The graphics in the game are wonderful. Very, very pretty game. If you like garbage like Midgar. I mean, Midgar is very dumpy and whatnot, but I mean, they capture it very, very well. The Materia System from the original is still in the game. It works fairly well. Your weapons have the weapon slots, and you can add your Materias to them. Your armor has the Materia slots as well. The added effect Materia, there's only 2 in the whole game. So I didn't get to play with it as much as I used to in the original. Basically, I would throw fire and then the added effect Materia, so I could hit people with the sword and cast, do fire damage. It's nice, it works. I wish there was just more of it. But what can you do? The magic actually works fairly well. I mean, surprisingly, fairly well. But the problem is, they still have that active time bar there, your ATB gauge. It builds up for every second of combat that passes, for every attack that you do, for every attack that connects, it builds faster, and you only get 2 bars of it, and your character has abilities, and it'll cost 1 or 2 bars, and then you can do it. Like Braver is a 1 ATB ability. Items are 1 ATB ability, some are 2. But that's a problem when it comes to playing time for combat. Combat is very, very fast-paced, and all of a sudden you're getting creamed, and it's like, I need to heal, and no one's ATB bar is ready to go. So they're punching and doing damage, but you can't heal. And, it becomes a stressful situation, and you have to work around it, and I think that's part of the challenge. I mean, I think of games like, Castlevania Lament of Innocence, where it had, the similar control style with the menu, but it didn't slow down. It just let me do what I needed to do. And I could just mash on potions, mash on whatever, and be done with it. So, the items and magic are, same thing. ATB bar, skills, ATB bar. Speaking of skills, this game has skills now in comparison to the original. There was no skills. You only had your materia and your limit breaks. You still get limit breaks in this, but you only get 1 to my knowledge. I didn't get anything other than cross slash and somersault and, big shot for Barret and the healing wind. There is a materia that adds another limit, but I never used it, so I don't know. But the skills are tied to the weapons, and each weapon has proficiency. You level up the weapon, you level up the proficiency by doing what it tells you to do in the menu, and you gain the skill. And I'll tell you, the skills are fantastic. You can really do some game-breaking stuff with it, with staggering, and staggering's a new thing. If you've played Xenoblade Chronicles, you know how to stagger and topple enemies. It's essentially the same thing. They take extra damage, and it's nice. It works really, really well. I think that's great. Now, going back to the materia here and the ATB gauge, summon materia is a thing. However, it's not tied to the ATB gauge. I don't actually quite know how summon materia works. It takes up its own materia slot, and it just kind of goes off, like, I think when you get your ass kicked for the most part, and, or, like, during, like, boss fights that, like, triggers that. I mean, I've had it trigger in normal battles if I'm really getting beat on hard. And it looks like you can only do one summon per combat. And the summons, basically, you're summoning an extra ally out there. They kind of do it on their own. And every character who has ATB ready to spend can actually do the summon's special moves. And once the timer runs out on the summon, it will do its final move and then go away from battle. So it's really pick and choose what summon you're going to get. And there's only a few summons in the game. And I mean, that's okay. I mean, it really didn't matter to me. Like, when I was getting the Shiva summon, I mean, obviously I equipped Ifrit and nuked it, but that's just me. Now, the game itself controls very well. Like, you press a button, it does what it needs to do. And it flows well, it's very smooth. Except, this is one of my first cons, it slows down because there's a lot of areas where you have to crawl or you have to slide through things. And it really slows down the pace of the game, especially if you've just gotten through a big combat and you're going through the area and then it's like, oh, gotta crawl through here. Oh, and there's another one, you crawl through here. And it just slows it all down, and it's unfortunate because the game can be very fast-paced. But, again, this is Midgar, and Midgar is a very slummy, dirty city. And there's going to be a lot of debris and stuff that you go through. I mean, especially when Sector 7 plate crashes. I mean, now we're going to talk a little bit about the story. The story, for the most part, is the exact same as you got back when the original came out. Now, you know, this came out in, like I said, April 10th, 2020. The old one, you know, years and years ago. I will have the correct date for you down here because I was unprepared for that. But Midgar initially was only a couple hours long, and they turned this into a 20 to 30 hour jaunt. And there's a lot of padding, and I am not a fan of the padding because it really doesn't add to the story. The only padding that I did like is they actually gave you more character development for the members of Avalanche, Jessie, Biggs, and Wedge. And Jessie is adorable, and found out she actually has a last name. It's Raspberry, and she actually used to work at Gold Saucer before becoming part of Avalanche here. So that's neat. I mean, I like that. Was it necessary? Not really, but like, I did like the fact that it gave me more attachment to them. Then the game adds some new characters in, like Johnny, and pretty much all these other characters that I could care less about. I think Madam N was another one, and I just don't care about them. It added hours of padding to the game, and I'm just like, and it didn't add anything to me. I didn't enjoy the characters, I didn't enjoy the padding, I didn't enjoy any extra thing there. Is that me being nitpicky? Maybe, but from one who really loved the original to this, it was just extra filler to make this a long, full game when it's not even a fraction of the original game. It wasn't necessary. It could have easily been taken out, and they could have actually pushed the game beyond Midgar to go to other areas, like, maybe even end it at Nibelheim. I don't know. I really don't know. And like I said, the story for the most part is the same, but then you'll start to see little snippets of things being different. Like, that didn't happen, that shouldn't happen, that didn't do this. Case in point, there's these creatures called Whispers that show up. And anytime the game would deviate from the original, the Whispers show up, to kind of keep the game on track. And that's weird, and I don't like it. It's a weird, stupid plot device. You know, like I said, they expanded some areas, and, you know, I was appreciative of the train graveyard. That was nice to see that expanded upon. But there's other areas like Wall Market where it got really expanded, and I was not a fan of. But like these whispers show up from time to time, again, to keep the story on track, and it's just a bad plot device. I'm going to come back to the story here in just a minute. I do want to talk about music. The music is not as memorable as the original. I just mentioned Wall Market there. The Wall Market music was very memorable in the original. It was a very skeezy sounding area, and the Wall Market music now is not that. You do get to hear a snippet of the original and like the pathway leading up to it, but like once you actually get into Wall Market, it's not the same, and it doesn't work for me, and it's not memorable, and that's unfortunate. And a lot of the remixes aren't memorable either. And that's sad. So, all right. So, as I said, story remains the same for the most part. There are little different things that happens, like, and again, it's all the padding. I think when you go to fight the Airbuster, like, you would just go through the reactor, fight the Airbuster, be done with it. Nope. You go through the reactor, oh, the Airbuster's getting loaded up. You need to stop it from getting loaded up, or it's going to kick your ass when you fight it. And it makes it into this big, long thing, and it just drags it out, and it's unfortunate. But once you beat the Airbuster, and Cloud would fall into the flower garden where Aerith is, and I'm going to call her Aerith because Aerith really does sound like Mike Tyson saying Aerith. That's just my opinion. In fact, you know, some of the names I will probably pronounce wrong for you guys because I had a way of pronouncing them before they were actually voice acted. And the game is fully voice acted, and that's very appreciated. And the voice acting is actually pretty dang good, not gonna lie. But like, you fight Reno in the church, and I thought that was interesting. It was a little different, but again, the wisps show up there because it's deviating from the story. And then when you're taking Aerith home, you end up fighting Rude, and you don't fight Rude for a good while in the original. And I don't know, I appreciated it, but I also just didn't care as much for it. And it's sad because the story was really following along pretty well. But like, after you beat the first reactor, I'm kind of jumping all over here, you pretty much get introduced to Sephiroth, whatever you want to call him, in Cloud's psychosis, and I'm just like, it's an hour into the game, and I already know who this guy is. There's no build-up like the original. Like, the original had good storytelling. You didn't know who he was. You didn't even see him until way later on. You saw a sword basically stuck in the back of President Shinra, and it's like, who did this? Did Sephiroth do this? And, you know, that was good in the original. It's like, nope, this guy's like playing games with you, and then he just shows up in Shinra Tower, and it's just like, okay, he's going to get Genova. When, in fact, in the original, I believe it was Genova that broke out of the containment unit, took the form of Sephiroth, and then stabbed President Shinra. Okay, so you get Barret, Tifa, and Aerith to control. Once you get to Red 13 in Shinra Tower, he is non-controllable, which is a damn shame, because I do love me some Nanaki. Shinra Tower is just a mess, too, with all the extra little things that they put in there. And, like, Hojo's laboratory is this huge spanning thing that shouldn't exist in a tower. And, like, oh, there's Genova. Oh, Sephiroth got Genova. Oh, guess what you're going to do now? You're going to fight Genova. You're not supposed to fight Genova for a good while. You don't fight Genova until you're on the cruise ship. So I don't quite get the thought process there. And like, you don't fight Genova in Hojo's lab. You fight him actually right where President Shinra dies. He's actually hanging off the edge, and Barret picks him up, and President Shinra threatens Barret, and then Sephiroth shows up, kills President Shinra, and then he kills Barret! Like, Just straight up fucking murders Barret. But then those whispers come out after you fight Jenova and bring Barret back to life. And I'm like, that's bad storytelling there. Why is it bad storytelling? Because it's a stupid plot device. And it deviates so much from the original. This is a remake. Remakes, change some things, but the story for the most part remains the same. And this is really going off course. And I'm not a fan of that. Rufus shows up, and the fight with Rufus is really freaking cool. It was a pain in the ass, but it was really freaking cool. And the whole motorcycle chase ensues after that, and you fight Motorball on the motorcycle, and once you beat him, the game it should end there, but it just goes off onto another tangent and whatnot. Like, I feel like the new character, Raj, or whatever, which again, pointless character, shows up once, gone, doesn't show up again, don't care about him. He could have been on the motorcycle too, with Motorball and whatnot. It would have been more interesting. If you're going to throw new stuff at me, that'd be it. Nope. What do you get at the end of it? You get Sephiroth, just comes down, says something about these whispers and this portal, and like, you can change everything if you follow me here. And Eris goes to stop you, and she's like, I don't know why I stopped you, because she knows what's going to happen to her, and Sephiroth knows what's going to happen to her, because this isn't actually a remake. It's like a pseudo-sequel, time-traveling bullshit experience. So you go through and you fight a Kingdom Hearts motherfucking boss with all those whispers. Because guess what? The whispers have been stopping everything from changing. So guess what? In order to stop them from keeping on path, we're going to kill them, and we can do our own thing. And this has huge ramifications. Huge. As I said, it's bad storytelling. So you defeat this giant Kingdom Hearts ass boss because Tetsuya Nomura just loves to just write bad shit. Like, he just does. I mean, So anyways, you fight this Avatar of Fate or whatever. I don't even remember what the hell Barret called it. It's a long ass fight, and it was so pointless. And then the final fight of the game is Sephiroth, and it's like, no! He's literally the last boss of the game. You don't fight him until the crater. And he shows up with his one wing, just throwing fucking Shinra building at you, and it's bad. It starts out as a one-on-one fight, and then Tifa comes in, and then Barret comes in, and then you just deal with it, and then after you kill him, he's just like, oh, we're gonna go to the edge of creation, and then it mirrors the exact final fight in the original where Cloud would use Omni Slash on him and just end him right there. Except it doesn't do Omni Slash, and Sephiroth's like, you have 7 seconds to decide, blah, 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 blah. And, yeah, the game essentially ends there, and the character Zack is basically alive. Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse are basically alive. Well, actually, I don't know if Wedge is. I mean, he got thrown out of a window, but Biggs and Jesse got crushed, but it shows one of them in the bed, and you see her glove there, so I don't know. Like, and I don't know where this game's going, because it literally went off rails in the last hour. And that's my biggest con, is just the ending. Like, I don't think it's what people wanted. And there are going to be people out there defending Square to the end of time. It's not what people wanted. It's not what I wanted. It's not what a bunch of other people I've talked to. And I've mentioned this to some people before I even thought of recording this. It's bad. And it's like, I'm glad I didn't purchase this game. It's not to say that this is a bad game. Does it ruin the game? No. If you've never played Final Fantasy, I would say or Final Fantasy VII, go ahead, play this. But please play the original. Appreciate the original for what it is. But you've gone off rails now, and I'm not as excited for part 2 as I could be. And that's unfortunate, because, alright, is Eris going to live this time? Because she needed to die. She has her white materia. Her death is what causes Holy to come and stop the meteor. That's how it works. Who are you going to do now? Kill Tifa? Because that kind of looks like what it's setting up for. You're making Tifa the absolute sweetheart, which Tifa is an absolute sweetheart. She's hands down way better than Eris. in so many aspects. Aeris is still a great character and whatnot. I think Tifa's a better character. And I know Tifa got a lot of short end of the stick in the original, like with Cloud and everything. But with Cloud's psychosis and whatnot, depending on how they do this, especially with Zack being alive, like, getting Cloud's memories back to where they need to be, it's not gonna be what we need it to be. And like, I don't know what he did. Like, it's bad writing. It's bad storytelling. Doesn't make it a bad game. It's just unfortunate, I guess. And I mean, that's kind of a sad note to end on with this, but I mean, yeah, like, Final Fantasy VII Remake, to me, was just a letdown from what it could have been. I did enjoy it. I would still recommend it to anyone, but like, the fact that the story went off the rails is a huge, huge letdown. So, hey, if you've played it, if you enjoy the way it's going, please let me know. Let us know. Like, what did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? Do you plan on playing this? Like, what is your experience with Final Fantasy VII as a whole? Anything. I'd love to hear it, and I'd love to hear the comparisons, because I mean, it's very divisive with the community, it seems like. So with that, I'm gonna sign off. Good night, good gaming, and we'll see you next time.